Hi, this is Mrs. Slater, and today we're going to talk some more about factoring. And just to review previous lesson that you do not have to write. I'll let you know when you have to start writing notes again. But the rules of factoring. Always know that the first rule is to check to see if you have a greatest common factor. Okay? The second rule is to check and count all of the terms that you have. If you have two terms, you have two possibilities. It could be squares or cubes, and we talked about that in the previous lesson. Now the next one, and this is where you would have to start writing things down, is if you have three terms, there's a few things that you could do with three terms. To factor a trinomial, check to see if all the terms are in order. So what that means is, and I go and get rid of that, we're also going to check to see if it's easy versus hard, and I'll show you what that means as well. So ascending means that it's going to have an exponent that increases gradually. Like, for example, if we had x to the 4th plus x to the 5th plus x to the 6th plus x to the 7th, that is ascending orders because the exponents are raising every single time. And then opposite would be for descending, and this is the most likely kind of problem that you're going to see. This would be in descending order, where you have an exponent of 2, 1, and then 0. So those would be considered descending. Okay, so you must look for that first so you can actually solve the problem. And then once you see, you look for if it is an easy or hard trinomial. And what I mean by easy is where the leading coefficient is 1. So on every answer, it will always have two sets of parentheses, two binomials. To determine the signs, we look at the last term. If it is a positive sign, then we look at the second term, and those signs are going to be whatever the second term signs are. And then for the next one, if they're positive, then the answers are going to be both positive. And then the third kind is the most tricky, just because if the third term is negative, the signs in the two binomials are one positive, one negative. It does not matter what the other signs are. So you just have to make sure that you are going to get a negative 4x when you take the first and the last terms together. Alright, so always know the famous question when you're doing factoring of a trinomial. What are the two numbers? What are the two numbers that you're going to multiply together to give the last term, but add together to give me the middle term? Alright, so let's do some example problems. The first one is x squared plus 5x minus 14. So what you should be thinking of is factors of 14, which are 1 and 14 and 2 and 7. So since I know that 2 and 7 will give me a combo of 5, as long as I put the positive number on 7 and a negative on 2, then I will be able to factor this. So the x's are going to be split. 7 is going to be on one of the binomials, and negative 2 is going to be on the other. Now stop there, because all it's asking you to do is factor. Okay? And then the next three I'd like you to work on. Push pause, and I will check those tomorrow in class. And just a hint on this one, make sure you're checking the answer, because right now it is not in ascending or descending order, so just be careful with that one. Okay, so let's go ahead and go on to the harder problems, which are going to be the ones with trinomials that have a leading coefficient other than 1. Okay, so these are some things that you can look forward to. Always a set of parentheses, two binomials, and then you can determine your signs. And you can use trial and error to figure out what numbers go in the binomials. Keep in mind, you always have to be able to use the FOIL method and get exactly what you started with. So there's always a way to check your answers on these. Alright, so let's start with the first one. And for this one, I would like you to just put your pencil down, and I want you to listen through the whole thing. And then, if you would like to write it down, you can. If you don't, you can just start working on the next examples. Alright, so let's listen up here. First step. Okay, so in the yellow, you're going to try to find first terms must multiply together to give you 4x squared. Possible factors are the 2x and 2x, or 4x and 4x. So you have some possibilities there. Then you start thinking of last terms that must multiply together to give you 15. Possibles are 15 and 1 and 5 and 3. And then what you're going to do is use your outside and inside terms. They must add together to give you a middle term of negative 17x. And just be careful with your signs. So after trying some things out, you'll end up with 4x and x and the 5 and the 3. And you'd have to use both negative signs in order to reach your goal. Now what you see here is checking your answer. So what this is showing is multiplying 4x times x, 4x times negative 3, and same with the negative 5 to both of them. So let's go ahead and practice some of these harder ones. Okay, the first one, with 3x squared being the first term, it is nice because 3 is a prime number. The only choices I have for the first spots are 3x times x. Now for the last one, 2 is also a prime number, so my only choices are 2 and 1. And another nice thing about this is since they are both plus in between, I know my answer is going to be plus. So this one is going to be fairly short to do, short steps. Alright, so let's go ahead and put in 3x and x, because that's our only choice. And then we can put a 2 and a 1 in different locations depending on what we need. So my first trial and error is going to be 1 and 2. And I'll go ahead and multiply the insides. I get 1x. And the outsides, I get 6x. And that does not add together to give me 5x. So what that means is I'm going to go ahead and erase all that I put in, the 1 and 2, and going to flip it around and make it 2, comma, 1. Now I'm going to check the insides, I get 2x, and I'm going to check the outsides, and I get 3x. And when I add those together, I get 5x, so I know that I did it correctly. So that right there is going to be my final answer, 3x plus 2 and x plus 1. Alright, the next one's going to be a little more challenging. First of all, it's not in the right order, so we're going to have to change it around so it's in descending order. 4x squared plus 4x minus 3. So once you get that fixed, then it's time to start. My options for the first term are 4x and x, or 2x times 2x. My options for the last one is a prime number, so it's got to be 3 times 1. Okay, the signs are going to be a little tricky here, so I'm going to wait for that and go ahead and do some guessing and checking here. 4x and x are my first ones, 3 and 1. So I'm going to go ahead and check 3x, and this outside is 4x, and there's no way that I cannot get either by negatives or positives, I cannot get 4. So I know that that's not the way to go. Alright, so let's try another situation. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that out, but also keeping it there so I know what I've already done. Alright, I'm going to try 2x and 2x this time, and 3 and 1. Insides, I get 6x. Outsides, I get 2x. Now, there is a possibility to get 4, as long as I put a negative on the 2 and keep the positive 6, then I will get a positive 4x. So the 6 is the middle term, so the 6 is going to have to, the positive is going to be attached there, and then the minus is going to be at the end. So now I have my final answer. And always double check by foiling. Okay, the next one is in descending order, so we are good to go there. And I already see that I have a greatest common factor, which you know is the very first thing to do. And if I take out a 2, I am left with 12y squared minus 23y plus 5. And that may be very helpful just because it will be smaller numbers. 12 has a lot of factors to think about. 12 and 1 you could multiply together. We could do 2y and 6y. We could do 3y and 4y. But what's nice about 5 is there's only one option. So I'm going to go ahead and write down the 2. That is going to be part of my final answer. And I'm going to write down the 5 and the 1 because I know that has to be my part of the answer. And also, negative and negative are the only way I'm going to get a positive 5 and a negative 23. Okay, so now it comes down to my choices. What am I going to put in that spot? Let's try 12 and 1 first. So if I put 12y and y, the insides are negative 5 and the outsides are negative 12y. That's not going to work. Okay, and then I'm going to switch that around and try y and 12y. Insides way too big, way too little. So that's not going to work either. Get rid of the red. Okay, so I have done all my options with that. So now I'm going to try 2y and 6y, and I get negative 30 and negative 2, which will not give me negative 23, so that's out. Get rid of that, and then just switch them around. Make sure I've covered everything. Negative 10y and negative 6 is negative 16. So now I have done all my options with 2 and 6. Now it's down to 3y and 4y. Negative 20, negative 3, and I've got a winner because I know that that's going to be a negative 23. So I circle it, and that I know is my final answer. Alright, and then one more. It doesn't look like there's anything in common, so I am liking the fact that I've got a prime number because 2 and 1 have to be split. X to the 4th is going to have to be split into x squared and x squared, and y cubed will have to be split in that way. 20, though, I have a lot of options. 20 and 1, 4 and 5, 2 and 10 are all different things you can do. So instead of starting with the biggest range, I'm going to start with the 4 and the 5. Sometimes that helps. So if I put in 4 and 5, my insides are 4, x squared, y squared, and the outside is 10, x squared, y cubed, and then there's no combination of that will give me 3. So I know that's not going to work. So I'm going to erase and do 5, then the 4. See if that helps. So 5 is on the inside, 8 is on the outside, and there is a way I can get negative 3 as long as I put a negative on the 8, which is the outside. Okay, and so that's how I know I am done. And then the last one for you to work on and have it ready for class is this. And that concludes the lesson for today.